Hello everyone. So I've just been working on a song of my own and I was just recording some guitar parts and I thought I might just throw up the camera and show you what I'm doing. So I've chosen a guitar and an amplifier to give me the tone that I'm after. I've also chosen a microphone that's going to help with that tone. Also I found a room in which I'm going to get the right sound for my song, and also I've chosen the right, particular preamp and things like that, which I'll show you in a second. So what I've done here is I've placed my guitar amplifier on a chair. The reason I've done that is because the way the bass generates out of an amplifier, it's best to be raised up off the ground a bit so that the sound wave can grow naturally. If it's on the floor, then you can end up with a bit of a muffled sound, and you can also end up with a lot of reflection off the floor. So it's better to have it raised a little bit. I've also got some acoustic panels, which I've made out of rock wool and bound with Muslim wrap and have timber framing. I'll show you that now. Okay, so I've got them set up where they're going to catch some of the main reflections from the amplifier, sound reflections. Think of the sound coming out of the amplifier kind of like a torch or a light. It's shooting out this way, but it's also shooting out all around. So what this one's doing is it's going to catch a lot of the sound coming out of here, bouncing off this wall and back into my microphone. And this one here is where in the direct line of fire of the amplifier to help grab some of the sound before it then goes and bounces all around the room and then comes back to the microphone again. This one here is directly in between the microphone and the amplifier, so it's going to again catch the first reflection off the floor. Yes, we've got carpet here, but carpet and blankets and things like that are really not good enough for acoustic treatment. They catch the high end of sound. What you need is a really dense material to capture the mid-range and some of the low end of the sound, because in particular with guitars, that's where a lot of the issues come up when mixing a song, is the guitars take up a lot of the mid-range and low-end, or they create a lot of build-up when they're blended in with vocals and bass guitar and drums and all the other elements. There's usually a lot of build-up around the mid frequencies or to low frequencies, and therefore using things like acoustic treatment will help ensure that all of those low to mid frequencies that would be otherwise bouncing around the room have been reasonably absorbed and they're not getting caught back up in this microphone. It's almost impossible to truly eliminate all of it. However, this rock wool stuff does a really good job. So what it is it's rock wool. So wool made out of rock. It's kind of like pink bats and that sort of thing, but it's not. It's they've mounted down rock and then blended it up into a wool sort of product. They've mixed it with other elements, recycled materials and some binding stuff to make it stick together into slabs. And yeah, so basically what's happening is the sound waves that are coming out of here are going into the rock wool. Because the rock wool is quite dense, a lot of those mid to low frequencies, as well as the high frequencies, are all getting slowed down. They're trying to travel through it, but they're hitting it and kind of slowing down and then passing through with a lot less energy, and then they'll be coming back and some of them will be coming back through the panel again, slowing down even further and coming back to the microphone with very little energy. You might think, well, why don't I just put a concrete block up or something like that, or put it against a concrete wall? Well, that's not good, because that's a solid mass. So basically, the sound will just full on reflect back off it, which is worse. So yeah, so something like this, where it's not actually a solid product, it's a very dense product, is going to do a lot better for reduction of that low and mid-range sound. Okay, so what I've done is I've chosen, again, a particular amplifier that suits the sound I want for my song. I've chosen a guitar that has the right tone and sound for my song. I've gone through and I've set up on the amplifier itself the amount of reverb and some EQ settings and a little bit of overdrive and all that sort of thing to suit the sound of my song. I've also placed the microphone here, which is about two hand widths apart, away from the speaker. That's what suits the song I'm working on. That's the sort of sound I want. I don't want it to be too close, focused, and thick sounding. I don't want it to be too far or too distant and roomy sounding. I want it to be somewhere in the middle. So that point that I'm trying to make here also is that all these choices I've made are what sound good in my song. And how do I know that? Well, I recorded a basic version of the song, and then I could hear how all the instruments were working, and I could hear, right, I need my guitar to sound a little bit more, a little bit thinner, slightly raspy-ish, because the bass guitar is doing this and the drums are doing that, and that's how it will pop out in the mix better and sound better for the song. I'm also choosing to do a lot of these things based on my ear, based on what I know and understand through experience, rather than going into the DAW and doing a lot of EQ after recording. I am still going to do some tidy up afterwards in the mix. However, I'm going to try and get the best sound for the song. Another very important point is I'm not trying to get the best sound of this amplifier or that guitar. I'm not trying to get the best sound I possibly can, because that's going to be no good for the song. I'm not going to, unless the song was built around the guitar and everything else was auxiliary to the guitar, then you need the guitar to sound scooped, cut, whatever. You need it to sound kind of right to sit in the song. Again, these are things that you'll learn over time, and your ear will get better at hearing and understanding. To get my sound right and my mic placement right, I used a pair of noise cancelling headphones. These are really high quality ones from Sony, and I set up a little bit of a delay in my software so that I could move the microphone around and strum my guitar, and I could hear, like 2 or 3 seconds later, I could hear that strum play back through my DAW, through my recording software. The trick there is that if you're strumming, even with noise cancelling headphones, you're still going to be feeling the bass in this the actual amplifier in the room, which gives you a false impression of how it's going to sound. So by setting a delay of like a couple of seconds, you can go, strum a couple of chords, stop, and then they'll play back through your headphones, and you'll hear what it's actually going to sound like in the mix, which again is the whole key to what you're doing. So for this particular recording, I've chosen the SSL channel strip. This is basically the equivalent of taking a single channel or one of those sliders that you see in the big mixing consoles in pro studios. This is basically one of those. That's instead of the slider. It's just compacted down into a single unit. So it's got all the high quality preamp bits and pieces going on in here. You see your trim here, add some harmonic distortion, which I'll explain in another video. You can add inserts, so it could be a bunch of different things. I could add some of this distortion piece here, or a compressor, or whatever. I can add something else into the mix if I wanted to, which I'm choosing not to. Here you've got your low pass filters. That means you can cut off any unwanted low end sound. I've chosen to cut off below 40 Hertz. Nothing from the guitar is going to be below 40 Hertz. It's basically just going to be rumble from, say, trucks driving past and that sort of thing, so may as well cut it out here. This is the EQ stage, which I am not using, so I'm not using the equalizer here. I feel I've got my sound pretty much right through my guitar and my amplifier settings, as well as my mic placement and my room sound, so I'm pretty happy with that, and I've chosen all those bits and pieces to suit the song in the mix. I will be doing some EQing, no doubt, in the mix stage later on when I've added all the other elements back in, or re-recorded everything else, but for now I'll use that as just a bit of tidy up and keep this as it is. And the last thing I've got on here is a little bit of a limiter turned on here, which isn't actually doing anything because I'm not actually getting that loud, but it's just there in case something does happen and there's a sudden spike in volume. It'll stop a massive load of volume coming through, coming out of here into the rest of my system and into the computer, and potentially into my speakers or headphones, and doing damage. So yeah, behind here there's a cable coming out and going into this unit in the back, into the third channel as a line in. That is then coming out of here and going into my computer, into my software to record. So as you'll see, this meter will light up, and this meter will light up. That's the sound coming out of here going into there, and then it's also going into my computer. So as you will hear, okay, so I've got my guitar, I'm all ready to go. Got my preamp set up, I've got my microphone and my acoustic treatment all set up. I'm going to be playing back the music through these speakers rather than wearing headphones on this occasion, because it feels just a bit more natural than wearing headphones, just to be playing against sound in a room. I'm going to be able to hear my guitar coming back through the door, through the actual doorway, because this means it's not going to be introducing any kind of lag or any kind of latency that can happen through the computer. What that means is when the sound, if I was listening to the microphone through my computer, it's almost impossible to get rid of the delay that it takes from the microphone to go, the sound to go through the microphone, through the cable, into the preamp, into the audio interface, converted into digital, into this software, to be mixed with the rest of the sound, to be played back. There's going to be a delay, no matter what. Even those things that say they got zero delay still have some delay. So that's the most natural way to play. So that's what I'm choosing. So yes, I'm going to just hit record and see what happens. Kidding. Just kidding. So yeah, so that's basically how I mic'd up this particular guitar part, and recorded this particular guitar part. So again, I knew the sound I wanted for this part of the song, how it fitted in with the rest of the instruments, and I had that sound in my mind, and I went for it, hunted for it, and set everything up so I could get that sound. So yeah, so this is something you might not necessarily be able to do immediately. With practice and time you can do it, and if you're lucky you can maybe call upon someone like myself or someone near you who knows how to do this sort of thing, to come and in person help you with something that you're working on, your song, and kind of explain how they're getting there. It's definitely something that's difficult to explain on a video over the internet, on YouTube, that sort of thing. It's a lot works a lot better in person, to kind of explain and describe what you're trying to hear and what you're trying to find. So yeah, if you aren't there yet, do call upon someone to help you out, who has experience in doing this sort of thing, because yeah, it's going to help you get further faster, and get you recording better music and getting better results. Cheers.